Greetings, my name is Monty Martin.
And I'm Kelly McLaughlin.
And we are the Dungeon Dudes. 2023 was a crazy year, and we are really excited to see it go, but we still managed to play a lot of great games this year.
If you are looking to branch out in 2024 into some games that aren't D&D, but you love your TTRPG games and you have a group that likes trying new things, we're going to talk today about 5 of the games that we got to try this year that we had so much fun experiencing and we hope to play more of in the future.
There's a lot to discuss, so let's get rolling.
So kicking things off, one of the games that I think stood out the most out of all the games that we got to try this year was the Alien RPG, which is by Free League, who makes some incredible games.
Kelly and I got to play this game with our friend Zach from Worlds of Game Design at Gamehole Con back in October, and we had a lot of excitement building up to playing this one, and I have to say, it delivered. It is a really, really good game. Here's how it works.
So the Alien RPG uses the Year Zero system. It's a system created by Free League, and a lot of their game systems use the Year Zero system. The idea of the Year Zero system is that you have a dice pool of D6s. Depending on the abilities that you're using, your dice pool grows or shrinks. The more skilled you are, the more dice that you have to roll.
Characters in the Year Zero system generally have one of 4 basic attributes, usually things like strength and agility, things that are quite familiar if you've played a lot of role-playing games. And then usually each of those attributes has a couple skills associated with it. When you try to do something that the GM calls for a roll for, you pick up a number of dice and you roll them, and as long as at least one of those dice is a 6, you succeeded. So in my case, I was playing a very agile pilot in the Alien RPG. So I was rolling 8 dice for my piloting checks. I also was a great shooter, so I think I had 8 dice in the gun skill as well. So I was really, really excited to get blasted.
I, meanwhile, was playing our commander, and I had a lot more of the social skills in the game, which I used to tell my allies what to do and where to go. Yeah. And I think that it was a really clean system in the idea that you look at your skill, you look at the ability attributed to it, and that the numbers on the page tell you how many dice you're rolling. And your goal is to roll a 6 in any of them. But in the Alien RPG, there's also the stress mechanic.
Because the Alien RPG is meant to capture the tension and horror that builds and builds, inspired by the films of Ridley Scott and James Cameron, you collect stress points over the course of the game. The number of stress points that you've accumulated add to the dice that you roll on every check, representing the fact that even when you're stressed out, sometimes stress makes you perform better. I can definitely relate to this. On the flip side, though, you have to roll a different colored D6 for each of those stress dice. And if any of those D6s come up as a 1, regardless of however many other 6s you might have rolled, you fail what you tried to do, and you have a chance of going into a panic mode, which actually ended up killing my character. I had just a couple levels of panic and was staring down the alien, and I decided to go full blast. I picked up my huge pool of dice, rolled I think I had like 12 dice, and I rolled a bunch of 6s and then saw the single one there.
In the stress dice.
And that was... And then the alien killed me. And it's a fun mechanic. The alien rolls randomly to see what it does to you, and it's all the things that from the movies, which is great.
And that's one of the eases of use of this from a GM perspective is the monsters, you just roll on their table to see what attack they're going to perform. And a lot of them are really deadly. Yeah. If you roll high enough on the actual alien, it can just kill you outright. Now, there are 2 modes that you can play Alien RPG in. There is the cinematic mode or the campaign mode. In the cinematic mode, which is the one that Monty and I tried out, you're really looking at a one-shot single evening adventure. The monsters are more deadly. The goal is to get off the ship or put the alien in an airlock, somehow try to survive, but you don't want to mess with the alien in a cinematic mode single night campaign. In the campaign mode, though, there are a lot more variety in the types of monsters that you might face. There's a lot more building of characters, and you can go for a much longer stretch within the campaign.
One of the ways that I heard it described, which I thought is very apt, is the one mode is more like the first Ridley Scott film, whereas the other mode, you've got more of the Space Marines and the action horror of the second James Cameron film, which I feel that they are both masterpieces. But I really actually was reflecting on how those two films really capture like the survival horror and the action horror genres, and makes me love them even more. And I love this game because I have to say, playing, we had a wonderful group of friends that we played this game with, and one of the cool things is that everyone gets dealt out a card of your personality and like your ulterior motive. So everyone's just a little bit sketchy, which kind of reflects the aura of mistrust of the Alien films. And I felt playing the Alien RPG, we were laughing, we were having a hilarious time. We were playing the game at like midnight, but the game was deadly serious, and I could see how the action that we were playing would have been shot if Cameron or Scott were directing it. Like, it was so tense.
Yeah, I do feel like, the jokes aside, because jokes happen in every TTRPG table, and we were laughing hysterically, but at no point was it not horrifying when we split the party. And I think that Alien RPG is one of those games where if everybody's buying in to the alien mythos, splitting the party, we knew that we were getting ourselves into trouble. But we were trying to navigate a derelict ship, and so we sent some of the crew to one point, some of the crew to the other. People were dividing to look for survivors, information, plus the ulterior motives caused people to break away from the group to try to find something or do something secretive.
Yeah, because in my case, my character was a thrill seeker, and so if I wasn't looking for fun and looking to cause trouble, I would get more stressed.
And my commander was the one on the comms, which part of the joke was we were all sitting around the table, so we knew what each other was doing. But because the party was split, my card was literally, you're too old for this, and you just want to get paid and get the job done. Nobody should break the rules. My card said, like, you don't want anybody to break the rules, just get the job done. So I'm on the comms being like, how's the bridge going? Knowing full well that they've abandoned the bridge to go hunting for like guns and meds.
That was me. Yeah, I was the one, because my card was like, you just want to have fun.
Yeah.
Like, this is boring and you want to have fun at whatever expense. I loved this game. I had so much fun playing it, and we picked it up instantaneously in terms of the rules. It was really, really, really quick to pick up. I think the game that we played for it was maybe 2-3 hours, and
it was the starter set campaign.
Yes, it was, which was great. Like, it has a beautiful map. It has all the dice that you need for it. It has really handy cards. If you're looking for something that is really outside the genre that you might be used to with heroic fantasy, this is a great port of call. And I think one of the cool things about it is that because it is inspired and based on the Alien movies, it's really easy for everyone to just rewatch those movies and have the touch tone of what the game is trying to capture. And it captures it.
If you have a group that is willing to buy into what it feels like to be in an Alien movie, you're going to have so much fun with this, because the game does such a good job of bringing that atmosphere to life at the table. And I think it succeeded in a way that a lot of games don't. And I actually personally find that this is a very special game, because a lot of games for me that are based on an existing world or an existing mythos, I find that I actually am less interested in telling stories in that, because the stories have already been told.
Mm-hmm.
But Alien presents a mythos and a world where we only ever got small snippets, and there's so much yet to be explored.
Yeah.
And so you do have room to tell your own stories in that world.
So next up, at Big Bad Con in September, Kelly and I were able to play Cyber+PNK. And what was really cool about this is the game was run by Ray, who is one of the publishers at MythWorks that published Cyber+PNK. And I was just really impressed with this game. I think the first thing to just share is that Cyber+PNK is based on the Forged in the Dark system. It is meant to do which is the game for Blades in the Dark. And so you are doing cyberpunk futuristic heists, which just is a perfect blend of, I think, the ethos of Blades in the Dark, but just transported to a different genre in the far future. This is probably the tightest starter set kit that I have ever seen. Check this out. Inside this are pamphlets, character sheets that are dry erasable and reusable, because the whole game is meant for playing one-shots.
I thought that this was brilliant. The character creation was so simplified that you not only do you get to draw your little character, and it doesn't matter how good your art skills are, they actually give you a little template of a face that you can kind of design around. So that it's actually smart how the little template on here shows you where the eyes and nose and mouth would probably go. And so you just design your character. I have pictures online of like my quirky little characters that we made, but you get to give them a name, you get to give them a look. What their goal is, you actually have a list of goals. You just check off the box for the goal that you want. And then you build your character in a matter of minutes. And that it's actually surprising to me how simple selection of a few options really defined and created unique, bespoke, and interesting characters at our table.
Totally. So what's really wonderful about this is that basically everything a player needs to know to play this game is on this pamphlet. All the rules, all the mechanics, all their skills, all their stats, everything to do this. And if you haven't played a Blades in the Dark system before or tried this out, it is also a D6 based system, but of a slightly different tone and style compared to the Year Zero system. You're not going to have as large of a dice pool. Usually you'll be rolling between 1 and 5 dice in the system. And then you look at the highest die that you rolled to determine if you succeeded or failed. If you rolled a 6, you did it. If you rolled a 4 or 5 as the highest result, you did the thing, but at a cost. And if you did a 1 to 3, you failed and you're going to take some stress or damage or harm. All of which then can influence your future rolls. In Cyber+PNK, which is different from Blades in the Dark, you actually have a stat plus a skill, and you get to distribute points when you make your character to decide on what you're good at. So like whether you're aggressive, smart, empathetic, or stealthy, and then like what skills you have. I've generally found as a one like critique of this, usually it results in players are often rolling 4 dice.
I do find that one thing that I think you need to be aware of is limiting and being more specific in what skills a player can use for certain things. Yeah. I found that because my character that I made was smart, I would find a smart way to tackle every situation. Now, if it made sense, great, but I did find I was rolling 4 dice a lot. The other mechanic, though, that this game has that comes up, I always find it comes up near the climax of each of our one-shots. This is a mechanic that's in Blades in the Dark, and it's repeated here. And that is the flashback mechanic. The way that this mechanic works is that at any point, you can take stress to have a flashback. And when you have the flashback, you can say, oh, it's a good thing that this happened. This item is where I put it. This getaway car is parked outside. This whatever it is that you come up with, you can take stress and come up with a scenario that alters the path of the game. In our game that we played, there was a brilliant moment where you were our getaway driver.
Yes, and I flashed back to say, turns out I parked the car outside that we need to escape with, which resulted in a amazing chase sequence to close the game off.
I also love that this pairs really well with the other mechanic that Cyber+PNK has, which is that when you choose your inventory at the outset of the game, when you're creating your character, You don't pick what items you have. You simply choose whether you have a light, medium, or heavy inventory load. And that determines your maneuverability and things like that. But it also determines how many items you can carry. But you don't choose those items right away. At any point during the game, you can say, well, it's a good thing I have this handy grenade, and then you check off the grenade box, and that's one of the items that you're carrying. So I actually did that. We were in a room in an apartment, and we heard the enemies coming upstairs, and they were trying to battering ram down the door. And I did say, it's a good thing I have this grenade. And as the door burst forward, I threw a grenade into the hallway and we all jumped out the window.
You can suffer injuries in this game, and you can also have like cybernetic augmentations that can glitch out, which can affect your die rolls in certain ways, basically increasing the number or decreasing the number of dice that you roll. You have a stress mechanic, which again, you accumulate stress points, which really in the way that they feel in Cyber+PNK, your stress is a resource to use, kind of like almost like your hit points in an interesting way, but you spend them over the course of the game to do flashbacks, to survive when you fail a roll, use more augmentations and things like that. So there's some resource mechanics, but it's pretty light. The box set also has adventures in it that again are just one pamphlet that is all you need as the GM to run these off of. I really enjoyed this element of it, and they're very much inspired by some classic like science fiction scenarios, like finding out that you're in a simulation or being hunted by in like a Running Man sort of situation. So overall, MythWorks, this is like an absolutely killer set, and I just loved that you got everything you needed to run this game in one packet. Basically, I have packed this box set in my convention go bag because it's such an easy game to just say, oh yeah, I want to play a game with you cool people. Let's play Cyber+PNK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another game that we got to try at GameholeCon was the Cypher system. Specifically, we got to try Numenera. Monty and I got to join in on a game that was happening there, played with some really cool people, and got to do a little bit of a sci-fi fantasy exploration of a creepy dungeon filled with a horrible monster and a strange mystery that we had to uncover for the townspeople below.
The Cypher system has spawned several games, including Numenera. I believe Old Gods of Appalachia is another one amongst the genres, and they are a D20 based system, but there's a couple nuances to the way that Monty Cook Games has set up the Cypher system. In the Cypher system, your character will have this descriptive element to their character sheet. They will be an adjective, noun, who verbs. And so in my case, I think my character was a strong glaive who protects the community.
And I can't remember the specifics of the words that I had, but I do know that I was what in the Numenera system was a psychic sort of character who was
smart nano who manipulated magnetism.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was it. And yeah. I basically felt like I was young Magneto.
Yeah, it was really, really cool to see how the character building comes together. You have 3 pools of stats in the game: your might, your agility, and your intellect. And essentially, you spend points from your pool to make dice rolls easier.
One of the interesting things that I found with the mechanics of this game is that a lot of the abilities that you get as a player character are a little bit nebulous. They aren't as specific as in something like D&D, where it's like roll these dice and this will happen. I found that the Cypher system actually lent itself well to role play heavy and improv interpretation. My abilities said, like, you can move metal objects with your mind. You're going to spend a point, and then you can move metal. It didn't really tell me how far I could move metal or how large the object was, and that was more of a discussion between me, the player, and the DM in the moments, which I found very freeing. If I felt like I should be able to do something, we talked it out and decided how it worked for me doing it.
Yeah. And another kind of interesting element of the Cypher system is why it's called the Cypher system. Characters in these games will find ciphers, which are essentially one-shot items that have some sort of special or unique effect that can be anything from healing somebody, giving you temporarily the ability to fly, or being a small nuclear bomb. And what's cool about these ciphers is that generally characters can only carry 3 of them at a time. So you have to decide kind of what fun tools might come up that you're going to bring into the mix. And it encourages you to use your consumables because you're only allowed to carry 3. You might only find 1 of them. And so you just use them because otherwise you're going to find too many of them and not be able to use them at all.
What I like about the Cypher system is that it's familiar if you are playing D&D a lot. You're going to understand and grasp a lot of the concepts, but it does feel like a step away from D&D. Not as drastic as something like the Alien RPG or CBR+PNK.
Yeah.
You still have your fantasy elements, but with a lot more touchstones into science fantasy or science fiction fantasy.
Yeah, because the idea behind Numenera in the setting is that it's the world a billion years in the future, and technology is indistinguishable from magic to the people that inhabit this world. So it is a world powered by science, but it ends up looking like and feeling like a medieval fantasy setting because all the magic is actually nanotechnology that the people in the world don't understand. I think it would actually be kind of a cool system to play a Horizon Zero Dawn campaign in.
Yes,
yeah.
It felt a little bit like Horizon Zero Dawn in the depiction of the setting, which I'm a huge fan of.
Now, of course, we covered this next system in a full video. MORK, BORG, and its sort of horrific offspring have been games that we have really loved playing. We got to really play a bunch of these different ones at GameholeCon as well, including Ragnaborg, which is Viking MORK BORG, as well as
Vast Grimm, both of which, Vast Grimm is more of your sci-fi. I like to call this if the Guardians of the Galaxy met the Alien universe.
Yeah, and we got to play these games with the authors behind them, which was a real treat to do. It's always lovely getting to play an RPG with one of the creators of that system because you really get to see their vision in play. And although Vast Grimm and Ragnaborg are both based on the MORK BORG core, they were really different feeling games, and it really struck to me how much the core of this game with a new coat of paint just transforms across genres.
It's a very easy system to mash into whatever format you want. It's essentially it does use a D20, right?
Yep.
Essentially, you use a D20 and some D6s, and most of the time on your D20 you're trying to roll over 12. And your D6s are for coming up with every single thing in the game that you're going to use to create your character. Character creation is a bunch of random die rolls that are going to create a wacky and bizarre character.
Yeah, you might have some magic, you might have some unique powers. Your abilities, you do have 4 ability scores in the MORK BORG games. Some games add another one. Generally, this is your presence, which is all your mental attributes rolled into one stat. Your strength, your agility, and your toughness. You roll these stats in order using 3d6. You very rarely have a modifier in your stats more than +1 or +2. And so it means that most of the time when you're rolling the dice, you're looking at a 50-50 shot at best. Your characters usually only have a couple hit points, so it's a pretty lethal system. Although Ragnaborg, the one shot that we played, we were buffed up a little bit. We had a little bit more robust stats as if we'd leveled up a little bit, which actually felt pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Vast Grimm, we went right off the get-go, and we did, most of us, well, 2 of us survived, though. Or no, I was the only survivor.
You were the only survivor. Yeah,
everybody else blew up. Also, sorry, Brian, the author of this, for going so off the rails in your game. But we had a lot of fun.
We did. MORK BORG is in the system, if you play D&D, you know how to play MORK BORG because it's basically stripping down the core of the original rules to its barest essentials, the barest die roll. And it really gets you to loosen your preconceived notion of what you think a role-playing game has to be. Like, do you need all those bells and whistles or not? For some people, the answer is absolutely yes. And for some people, the answer is no. And I think for myself, I found that BORG was a really the biggest thing about all these systems is that the artwork is so inspiring that you get caught up in the genre and you really get to let go and not be precious about the experience.
I think my big takeaway from MORK, BORG, Vastgrim, and Ragnaborg is I prefer D&D for long form narrative stories.
Yeah.
But if you're planning an anthology series of different Borgs, or if you're just looking for 1 to 3 nights of fun, I have heard stories of people out there who have played a single MORK Borg campaign for a month or two, but this isn't your year-long campaign. Your characters will die. This isn't the place to get attached to your well-designed 30-page backstory character.
Yeah, although the worlds are really evocative, and it is very much that whole idea of I feel like many of these games in the MORK Borg genre, they really capture that kind of feeling of, say, the heavy metal cartoons or the Twilight Zone or those types of like episodic TV series that were exploring themes but in individual ways. And sometimes that can be a lot of fun, and it makes you feel like you've had a very diverse set of experiences, even though maybe you've only played a couple different iterations of them. So we love them. I think the mechanics are really straightforward. You can check out our full review video on the MORK Borg system, but we're definitely going to be playing a lot more of that.
The last game that we tried this year, and we've also done a few specific videos talking about it, is Pathfinder 2nd Edition.
Which the remaster is now out, which we are still waiting to get our hands on a hard copy of the remaster. Pathfinder 2nd Edition, published by Paizo Publishing, has recently remastered its core rules to really clean up the 2nd Edition rules, tighten things up, and also so that they can spin out the game entirely under Paizo's ORC open license and make sure that kind of very deliberately that a lot of the things that the terms that they have used and terminology that are from its roots in D&D are kind of uprooted and remastered and made into their own.
Now, Pathfinder is a medieval fantasy epic role-playing game. Uses similar concepts to D&D in the mechanics. It's a D20 system. You have your abilities and skills and your classes and your races, and all of that is still here in Pathfinder. What I find is that if you don't feel like playing D&D and you still want to grab something that captures the essence of heroic fantasy, Pathfinder is one of your best choices for that.
I would say that the best way that I can describe Pathfinder 2nd Edition to anyone that's played D&D before is it's like 4th Edition and 5th Edition had a baby, and that baby is very good at math. And I say this in a positive way because Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I've been playing it in a kind of an episodic Abominations Vault campaign with Ronald the Rules Lawyer and a couple other D&D YouTubers. We've had trouble defeating the scheduling monster to get that game off the ground. So we've only gotten to like 2nd or 3rd level so far. And although I have critiques of the Abomination Vault adventure, the system is excellent. And it is extraordinarily tightly balanced. And I think that the biggest reason why you should check out Pathfinder 2nd Edition is if you want balanced tactical combat with a good support for the role-playing that you enjoy, go for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. It is far more like 5th Edition is not a balanced game, and I'm never going to defend it as a balanced game. And if what you want is a balanced combat experience where your players are just, I feel like in Pathfinder 2nd Edition it is mathematically impossible to break the game because the math is so tight.
That is one thing that I've noticed about Pathfinder. And so one thing that I will say is that for me, Pathfinder, D&D, I know that the internet loves to do this thing where it's one or the other and they're against each other. I think you can love both. You can love one more. For me personally, I still love D&D. I still think 5th edition is great. I love how open-ended and not mathematically formulaic it is. But Pathfinder does lend itself to some beautiful structure that a lot of people are looking for. They're both fantasy epics, and if you like one more than the other, great. If you want to try both and see which one you gel the most with, great. I think that both are worth trying, both D&D and Pathfinder, and both appeal to different aspects of the heroic fantasy audience.
Yeah, there's a wealth of character building options for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. There's a ton of classes that really reinvent the different play styles, and a lot of different elements that you can put together in them to get that to really build the character that suits your vision. What I found from playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition is that as my character levels up, I don't actually necessarily feel more powerful, because the mathematical balance of Pathfinder is such that the math is always scaled around, is the monster a higher level than you or a lower level than you? And essentially the math is fixed, and you're like, if the monster's a lower level than you, you're always going to hit it on an 8 or higher. And if it's a higher level than you, you're always going to hit it on you're going to need to roll a 12. So you're going to need to apply tactics depending on what you're fighting. And the character building is very diverse, and you'll be able to build your character's strategy, but it's very difficult. You can't really do that thing that you can do in, say, 5th edition or 4th edition or any edition of D&D, where you can break the game by building a superpowered damage dealer in D&D. You're not really going to, the character building options are not going to let you tool up a crazy damage dealer that solos the entire encounter in Pathfinder.
And some people are going to find that more fun, and some people are going to find that less fun, and that's kind of the difference.
And I will say for the one thing that is kind of challenging about Pathfinder that's kind of been my headbutt is that the classes have very tightly defined roles, and you are rewarded for playing into the role, and the game's math will kind of punish you if you try to not play into the role that the classes are designed around. So that's why the game has so many different classes to it, so that you can pick the class that represents the fantasy that you're going for. But you really have to study the whole thing. And I've been going through it being okay, what is the right class for the character that I want to play in this? What is the one that captures the feeling that I'm going for specifically? It's a very immaculately designed system. And on the DMing side of it, being able to just build encounters very, very easily and know that they will be balanced around the right difficulty, I think for a lot of DMs is a huge relief. So it's worth checking out if you want that tighter, tactical, but still heroic fantasy experience. Pathfinder 2nd Edition is the one for you. I'm not sure, based on my experience, whether I would recommend 5e players who are considering Pathfinder 2nd Edition start with Abomination Vaults. I think I would look at some of the other adventures that are perhaps don't have this you can accidentally run into a monster that is going to kill you sort of dynamic.
So if you were looking for a game to branch out for this year away from D&D, or if you have never gotten into TTRPG games and are looking for the right one to pick, these are the ones that we've had the most fun playing this year. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the ones that we've played, and also what game systems we should look into for 2024. Monty and I are going to keep broadening our horizons and trying out new game systems and see which ones we love and which ones we don't. And we're going to review the ones that we love as often as we can on the channel and talk about what we found that excites us. So tell us about your favorite systems in the comments below.
The videos that we create on our channel are made possible thanks to the incredible generosity of our Patreon supporters. When Kelly and I cover RPGs and videos that aren't about Dungeons & Dragons, the videos tend to not get the same type of views that our D&D based videos do. If you enjoy hearing about RPGs that aren't D&D, helping support our channel through Patreon is one of the best ways to make sure that we can make more videos like this. So if you want to see us playing more games, different games, covering more different games on the channel, please consider becoming a patron of the show by following the links right down below.
And if you want to see us playing games that aren't D&D, I ran Monster of the Week for a few episodes, which you can check out right up over here.
And we've got a couple other reviews of a couple other non-D&D systems that you can check out right up over here.
Please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and ring that bell so that you never miss an episode.
Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time
in the dungeon.